DMase, Vingan and Donick, 1025. The Game, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, and Connor Newt here with you. Willie Donick, he might join us at some point today.
Yes.
He is at the D3 College World Series, where unfortunately, at the moment, Mahoney Donick and the Denison Big Red down 1-0 to East Texas Baptist in the top of the 7th inning.
I'm sure Willie is. You said you saw a picture and you didn't see Willie, or you're watching the stream and you didn't see Willie.
I've got the stream up just to keep tabs on the game.
Exactly.
And he is not seated behind home plate.
And I said that's possibly be because he's pacing somewhere.
He might be.
Yeah, chewing on his fingernails, taking his hat off and on, slapping it on his knee. He needs to be away from people because he's pacing back and forth. I'm sure he has worn out a trail wherever he's at.
So we'll keep tabs on that. Denison, by the way, with a win today, would set the Division III college baseball record for most consecutive wins. I believe it would be 45 consecutive wins for Denison. So hopefully, for Mahoney's sake, also our sakes, because we don't want Willie to be sad.
Nah.
We want Willie to be happy.
But that doesn't mean they would be eliminated, would it?
I don't believe so.
Okay. All right.
But
well, that's good.
I don't pretend to know the ins and outs of the
Division.
D3 College World Series format. I apologize to Willie. I know it's very important to him, and it's important to us because it's important to him.
Exactly.
Also important to all of you, the Tennessee Titans. They had OTAs today. It was open to reporters. Terry McCormick, one of those reporters, will join us at 4 to discuss what he saw at OTAs. Chad Withrow will join us in roughly 20 minutes. And Connor earlier sent us, you know how I feel. This is nothing against Connor. He's just doing his job. You know how I feel about the practice videos. But Connor sent us a video of Cam Ward throwing a pass to Carnell Tate. It slows down right as Carnell Tate makes a one-handed catch in stride down the sideline, it appears. Everybody's very excited. What I want to know is, did the route god see this? Has the route god seen this video?
Is he one of us?
Is he one of us? It's a 12-second video. Has he seen this 12-second video of Carnell Tate catching a ball, one-handed, right hand to be specific, in stride? Defenders all over him. Draped all over him. Terry McCormick was there. We will discuss what he saw from Carnell Tate, Cam Ward, and others at 4 o'clock. But last night in the NBA, the San Antonio Spurs forced Game 7. They defeated the Oklahoma City Thunder 118-91. Victor Wembanyama, 28 points, 10 rebounds, and 3 blocks. SGA, a minus 28 for OKC last night. ESPN said that is tied with 2023 Joel Embiid for the lowest plus-minus by the NBA's MVP in a clinching opportunity since at least 1997. So it was a terrible game for SGA and the Thunder. But here's how I want to start today's show. I want to keep it on the NBA. Because even if you haven't been following the NBA playoffs closely, one of the major storylines in the NBA this postseason, this postseason is SGA and his propensity to fall, to flail, to seek out fouls. And there have been a lot of think pieces written about this, a lot of conversations about this on ESPN. And I heard one, I think this was yesterday, from someone who I have a tremendous amount of respect for as a journalist, Michael Wilbon. Michael Wilbon was on Get Up yesterday talking about what could happen if the Oklahoma City Thunder make it back to the NBA Finals and win with SGA flopping all over the place. Here's what Wilbon said.
Thunder play the Knicks in the NBA Finals. With the magnitude of this market and all of the coverage and all of the conversation it creates, the way he is officiated, the way the games themselves are officiated, will be under a microscope, under a spotlight, unlike any that I think it has ever been before.
I don't know about ever. I mean, we went through this.
You got to go back maybe to
Bad Boy
Sacramento and the
Pistons
Lakers.
and Jordan and all of that stuff was examined to death.
Yeah.
I was there front row for that. Greeny, you make a great point. It just depends on whether they win. Winning covers all this stuff.
Yeah.
The deodorant that covers all stink is winning. And if Shai Gilgeous-Alexander goes back-to-back and he's on deck and he enters next season as a two-time champion and two-time MVP, guess what? There'll be kids out in the playground learning how to fly.
Oh, no.
Listen.
Please, no.
You know what, Alan?
Please, no.
People may not.
Jay's leaving. Jay's leaving.
Jay, but you guys know I'm right.
Let's set those kids and get ready to fall.
You know I'm right. I mean, this is people imitate whatever winning is.
So that was Mike Wilbon on Get Up. Now, Derek, when you were little Derek Mason,
yes,
and
little
you
Ricky,
were little Ricky, when you were little Ricky,
Mhm.
and you were on the hardwood at the playground shooting hoops, who were you pretending to be?
there were several different people, but obviously, I want to be like Mike.
Of course.
Absolutely. And then Steve Smith, we would call it a Smitty. It was a move that he did. So there were guys that, or George Gervin, the finger roll. So you emulated those things. So he's right. Wilbon is right from the standpoint of, because those guys that I mentioned were winners and they did it a certain way that garnered attention. You know, whether they became the greatest of all time in Michael Jordan, MVPs or player of the years, their style of play was being emulated. And he was right, whether it was the tough bad boy Pistons, and then you started seeing teams being a little bit more physical, like the Pistons, because they had to match it. Or Golden State, when Golden State started shooting three-pointers and Steph, everybody wanted to be Steph Curry. You know? Kobe, you can name them all. LeBron, even now. He is absolutely right. These kids, once they figure this out, if he wins another championship, if they hadn't figured it out already, because I've seen it at the lower level too. But if he wins another championship after being reigned the MVP once again, two-time MVP, yeah, you may just see flailing. There we go.
Flailing. It's a hard word. Flailing.
There we go. Flailing. And flopping everywhere. It's just the prime example. The Kareem Abdul-Jabbar skyhook.
I can't
Everybody
possibly
wanted to do a
believe
sky
kids
hook.
are going to go outside and practice flopping and flailing and trying to draw fouls on the basketball court. I can't possibly imagine
it's going to be, it's not that they're out practicing that. They just emulate it. It just becomes a part of their game. They're not, on the playground or in their backyard or at the gym practicing on falling and stumbling. No, but once they get inside the game, it's just going to start happening, and you're going to start to see it more and more when guys are around their what do they call it? Their landing zone. Guys are going to fall. Why? Because they're seeing SGA get the calls. So yes, you're going to start seeing it more and more. And I hope that coaches, and this is where it's up to the coaches. I hope that the coaches, sort of intervene if they start seeing that stuff, because again, there's times in moments for that. But when you're doing it on a consistent basis and you're making it a part of your game, that's where like they're talking about the ethics of the game is just like, not to, if you're up 50 points, not to score a basket. You just know that with 5 seconds left, do not go try to slam dunk it. Why? There's no written rule about it, but people don't like it. People don't like this either.
So Tom Haberstroh, it's a hard name to pronounce. Let me try this again. Tom Haberstroh of Yahoo Sports last week watched over 1,300 shots in the postseason from Jalen Brunson, James Harden, Donovan Mitchell, Victor Wembanyama, and SGA, because he wanted to find out if SGA fell on the floor more often than his other high scorers in the NBA. So he looked at how often these players fell on shots and non-shots, fouled shots and non-fouled shots. Overall, I'm doing a great job of explaining this. Overall, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, of the 224 shots that Yahoo Sports analyzed, SGA fell on 39 of 224, a fall percentage of 17.4%. James Harden, 11.9% fall rate. Jalen Brunson, 9%. Donovan Mitchell, 8.4%. Victor Wembanyama, 4.2%.
Victor never falls.
Well,
really.
I mean, it's hard to knock that
Exactly.
guy down, for goodness sake.
You got a point there.
But SGA, 39 falls on 224 shots, a fall percentage of 17.4%. So, like, I've seen clips of SGA. It's like, here's 5 consecutive minutes of SGA falling down on every shot he takes, which is overblowing it a little bit. But this, I would call it it might be unscientific because it's subjective, but 39 falls on 224 shots. So nearly 1/5 of all of his shots in the postseason to that point, whether he was fouled on them or not, he fell to the ground.
And this is where this is why it's irritating people, because then it becomes, how do you referee a guy like that? How do you call fouls or a non-foul on a guy like that? Because it seems like he's falling at a rate that is, more than others. So I got to be almost in the right position to see whether he's been touched. There's been a few where he's gone up and failed and hadn't gotten touched. It's like, man, what are you doing? Whether they call the foul or not, it's like, what are you doing, man? You're going to end up hurting someone by falling. That's what you're going to do, because it seems like a lot of times when he goes to the paint and he's driving, he's falling. And I get it. Listen, it's not like basketball is a physical sport, but it's not like he's Brunson, 5'11" and going amongst trees, so they're going to hit you above him. He's 6'4" or 6'5". So he has some height and some length to him. But to get knocked down the way he's got knocked down, it's just like, man, serious.
Caleb says, Wemby falls all the time, just not on shots. Matthew from Jolton says, being honest, in the paint, Shaq and Ben Wallace would dominate Wemby. It's the playoffs. Unless it's blatant, you have to let them play.
Wemby doesn't fall. That person that said Wemby's fall, he just gave you the stats. Those are actual Wemby, and they even did it during this year. Wemby doesn't fall. And Adam did say, hey, it's kind of hard to push that guy down.
Yes.
And falling for him and getting back up may be hardest, trying to get back up. But he really never falls.
Again, those numbers from Yahoo Sports comparing SGA falling on fouled and non-fouled shots through last week. 39 falls on 224 shots, a fall percentage of 17.4% compared to 11.9% for James Harden, 9% for Jalen Brunson, 8.4% for Donovan Mitchell, and 4.2% for Victor Wembanyama. So I heard that from Wilbon. And again, I'm trying to picture, my son's too young for this. He's 4.5, but I'm imagining my son, assuming SGA continues to play at a high level, I'm imagining my son like 3-4 years from now asking his dad to take him out to shoot hoops. And he's just like, Dad, let's practice flopping. Okay. No, we're not going to do that.
How you are a basketball enthusiast.
I am.
How would you feel if Boozer was falling all the time as a Duke fan?
I mean, let's be honest. Duke is known for
I get it.
Flopping a smidge.
I get it. So maybe your team wasn't the best example. But okay, for me, my Spartans, I would hate seeing it. That guy is falling all the time.
Well, I mean, Jeremy Fears is donkey kicking dudes in the gonads. So
and that was an accident, man.
An accident that happened multiple times. Speaking of Duke, Gunner says, thank God Grayson Allen didn't become an MVP superstar. Everyone out there tripping people. I mean, I don't condone.
Yeah, your school was the worst.
I don't condone everything that Duke players do. I mean, look, one of the best defensive players I ever watched in my time watching Duke basketball, Shane Battier. That guy never flopped a day in his life, ever, never. Connor, who would you emulate on the basketball court when you were younger? Not that you're that old to begin with.
Exactly.
Well, I was always a big man when I played
Oh,
in middle school and in high school. So I was kind of a stretch four. So I was like Tim Duncan a little bit.
Okay.
Mr. Fundamental out there.
I really liked Mark Gasol back in the day.
yeah.
There's the fundamental.
But then when I was just out sitting in the back or playing in my front yard, shooting around, it was Steph Curry, of course. How
See?
many threes can you drink?
Exactly.
You know who
Everybody wanted to be Steph.
You know who my guy was? The most random my guy there ever was?
Leitner.
Well, I mean, come on, yes, but that's not who it is. Brad Miller.
Wow. Brad was all right when he got to, especially when he got to, did he go to
Cleveland, right?
Cleveland?
He was everywhere.
Yeah, he's been a little bit everywhere. Yeah, you're right. Did he go to the Miami Heat?
He was with the Hornets, Bulls, Pacers, Kings, Bulls again, Rockets, and Timberwolves.
Oh, he didn't go to the Heat. Okay. I thought he went to Heat.
But you know what? He loved those elbow jumpers,
Uh-huh.
and those were my sweet spot when I was playing basketball growing up. So,
You're like double dribble. Look at you.
yes.
You hit the elbow? Just hit the elbow. Okay. I
Well,
mean, we had a team in Detroit, so we emulated Isaiah Thomas.
I do have a funny story actually before I forget it. So I for a couple of summers, I was a counselor at a basketball camp locally that I attended as a camper for many, many years.
Mm-hmm.
And one year I had a camper who loved Gilbert Arenas.
Okay.
And if I recall correctly, at one point, Gilbert Arenas, when he would shoot free throws, before he would take the shot, would wrap the ball around his waist a couple of times. And I remember this kid doing that every game we would play.
Mm-hmm.
At one point, I said, "Kid," I can't remember his name. "If I see you do the Gilbert Arenas one more time, shoot the ball." Because he would really, I mean, I don't know how many times Gilbert Arenas did it, but this kid, he would go around and around and around. And I'm like,
Agent Zero, baby.
There we go.
Gunner, by the way, you're thinking of Mike Miller.
Yeah, I'm thinking
not
of Mike
Brad
Miller.
Miller.
Yeah, not Brad Miller. Yeah,
Mike Miller, more successful than
I
Brad
was thinking
Miller.
about,
Thank you,
Mike
Gunner.
Miller. Yes, thank you.
Josh says, I always try to be like Dennis Rodman off the court. I mean, wouldn't we all?
Who wouldn't want to
Right.
date Carmen Electra? at the time?
Precisely. You took the
There you
words
go.
right out of my mouth.
There we go.
Carmen Electra. Now,
You could be NWO for
Stop
life.
it, Adam. Stop it, Adam.
I'm already in trouble. 615-737-1025. I heard that from Wilbon yesterday, and I'm like, Mike, you know that this can't possibly be true, right?
I'm telling you, it is.
Kids,
They're going to start flopping, Adam. So get your son now, sit him down, let him watch SGA, and then tell him kindly and politely, this is what you don't do.
the first thing Arlo's going to learn how to do is take a charge like a man. 615-737-1025. Chad Withrow will join us coming up next. I've got a lot of questions for Chad on a variety of topics. We'll get to them coming up next. 615-737-1025. Today, the Nashville Sounds take on the Gwinnett Stripers at First Horizon Park. First pitch today is at 6:35. Catch all of the action on 94.9 The Fan, presented by Twin Peaks Family Leisure, Maple Street Biscuit Company, and Social Cantina. DMase, Vingan and Donick, 1025 The Game. Derek Mason, Adam Vingan here with you. We are broadcasting from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership, where the buzz is always about great service. Let's go to our phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, and welcome in our friend Chad Withrow. Chad, how are you?
Doing great, guys. Thanks for having me.
Of course, always a pleasure. So, Chad, Lane Kiffin has been getting a lot of the attention for the things that he has said this offseason. But I think the coach who has actually stepped in it the most is Steve Sarkisian. There was the basket weaving comment he made about Ole Miss, and now Texas Tech coach Joey McGuire, I should say, is calling his bluff after Sark seemed to take a shot at the Red Raiders. If you were Texas, how would you handle this call out by Texas Tech?
Well, and I think Texas people are handling it exactly the way I would expect Texas people to handle it, with arrogance. It's just like Steve Sarkisian handled the whole situation. It's, oh, well, if you really want to have a true dialogue about renewing this series, then we can have that. But this is just a PR stunt. I saw someone who covers Texas post that on X last night, and I thought, well, it's all a PR stunt. I mean, what Steve Sarkisian did by dragging Texas Tech through the mud for no reason at all, that's a PR stunt. I mean, all these things, everything Lane Kiffin says about African-American players not wanting to go to Mississippi and all this, it's all one giant PR stunt. And I think almost every coach is now complicit in it, and it keeps going back and forth. So, look, I love what Texas Tech did in response to that. I love Joey McGuire. I like that Cody Campbell has gotten involved online as well. But to me, it's just this big ping pong match of PR stunts back and forth, where it's, oh, you guys are dumb, or you guys are racist, or your schedule is weak, and look at us and how much better we are and how much more academic we are at Texas Austin and everything else. It all gets kind of tiresome, to be honest. But I do agree with you, Adam. I think Steve Sarkisian has stepped in it a number of times, and there's no way that he doesn't look like a total coward if he does not take up the challenge from Texas Tech. He won't. Texas won't. They're going to go back to talk about the metrics of their schedule being the toughest in the country and yada, yada, yada. He's not going to take him up on the challenge. And for that reason, I do think that Texas looks like a coward in all this.
Chaz Coleman's future with the Tennessee Volunteers football program appears to be in jeopardy before he even plays a single game for the Vols. How do you anticipate this situation playing out?
Well, I know Austin Price, who's a great reporter up in Knoxville with VolQuest at On3. He had a report this afternoon saying that Tennessee did protect themselves in terms of the money with NIL. That after the whole no-show or showing up for a week or whatever he did, then he left because he was complaining of concussion-like symptoms from this past season, and that he was homesick and all these other things, and that he was dealing. All I keep hearing is that he's dealing with some stuff. He's dealing with some personal issues. But that when he left, Tennessee did restructure the NIL contract where he's not going to get the bulk of his money until late fall if he's actually there on campus. Here's my thing with this, guys. If he's got some sort of mental issue, then I want to be sensitive to that, and I hope he gets it corrected. But in the real world, and this is what all the players have fought for and what they want, we are adults. We contribute to large amounts of money being made by these universities and by these television networks and by these schools, everything else. We want our chunk of the pie. We want to get paid like professionals get paid. And a lot of these guys are getting paid, in some cases in college basketball, they're getting paid more than NBA players. So if you're going to do that, there's a responsibility that comes with it that's even greater than those of the student athletes that we knew before. So if Chaz Coleman wants to take $2 million, which I'm told is the number that he took to go to Tennessee, then guess what? You got to show up to work out. You got to go to practice. You got to be ready to play. If you're hurt and you can't do it. But if you're physically able to do it, then you need to be there. If not, you don't get paid. If not, that money goes back in the kitty for Tennessee to go back in the transfer portal and go find another edge rusher next year. I'm so tired of all the excuse making for players when it comes to situations like this. And thank God these situations are few and far between, where someone takes the bag and then no shows on it. We don't hear about it a ton of times. Usually it's done on the up and up. A guy who's getting paid a lot of money is worth it, and he shows up to work and he tries to be a good teammate. and he tries to contribute. That's not the case right now with Chaz Coleman. I don't know the reasons, but if it's homesickness, get out of here with that. Pay back all the money so Tennessee can go and find the next edge rusher next year, and you can go home.
Chad, I want to ask you an NBA question that we were discussing before you came on. Of course, SGA, once again, the MVP of the league, the Oklahoma City Thunder, one win away from returning to the NBA Finals. And a lot of attention has been on SGA's propensity for falling whenever he enters any defender's orbit. And we were playing a clip from Mike Wilbon of ESPN on Get Up, where he said, if the Thunder go back to the NBA Finals and win because of how influential SGA is as a player, how good he is as a player, kids are going to be flopping all over the court. Do you think that SGA, and I mean, it's laughable as we talk about it, but do you think like kids are going to emulate SGA if he and the Thunder go back to back?
I mean, I think they already are. Like, let's not act like SGA invented flopping. You know, like how many times do we see at every level of basketball and really good basketball players with that sort of exaggerated flop when you're dribbling the ball down the court and someone's guarding you tightly and they start to fall back like they're getting fouled? I mean, that's been around for 5 years now that we've seen that more and more. So I don't think SGA invented the flop. I don't think it's great for the sport when one of the biggest stars flops as much as he does, but I'm also not going to pin flopping on SGA from here on out. If you guys remember when Steph Curry was hitting threes from half court, basically, that was an impact on the game. Everyone started saying, boy, the game of basketball is not going to be good anymore because everyone believes they can hit a three, and now that range goes further and further out, even if the player doesn't have that range. That was the Steph Curry effect on basketball that was going to kill the game. I don't think that killed the game. I think it's a game now where all 5 positions usually can shoot it from deep and will do it. I don't necessarily think that's been a bad thing for the game. I don't like the flopping part of it. My biggest issue is the NBA. And look, after game 1, guys, I was all in. In that Thunder Spurs game. I mean, that was incredible. I'm thinking this is going to be back and forth, close game after close game. I don't know that we've gotten a close game since then. We got a close series. We're going to have a 7th game, but every game has been a blowout. There's just too many blowouts to sprinkle in those really good games in between. That's the issue that I look at with the NBA the most, is it feels like once one team gets behind, too often it gets out of hand and there's no ability to come back. So I want to see some closer games, but hey, we got a 7th game in that series, which I do think is very good for the sport. And what I saw in that first game was incredible. From Wemby and SGA and everybody involved, that was hardcore basketball that I remember watching in the 90s, and I was very impressed. I just want to see more of that.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like we're going to get it. And I think it's going to be an excellent finals, whoever makes it out of this series with San Antonio and OKC. I think it's going to be a terrific finals. But like you said, this whole SGA thing, I'm afraid that he's mastered it. You're right. He didn't invent it, but he has damn sure mastered on how to manipulate the referees and falling all the time. And I think that's what the fans, especially now that they're winning too, so they're on television a lot more than in what they were. I just think now fans are getting tired of it. And I think Adam Silver is going to have to address. You remember they had a flopping rule not too long ago. Yep. And I don't know if they adjusted it or they just don't abide by it. But this has been a part of the league, before it has been now.
Yeah, and I think you're right, DMase. When you make it a part of your game, right? Like, it's one thing I'm going to exaggerate this foul where I was actually fouled. Like, there's a part of basketball that goes back, decades that you sell the foul, but you do it when you're fouled. When you have a total style of play that I am going to do this to create a fake foul on this play, and this is just one of the moves that I have in my bag of tricks, and I'm going to do it repeatedly, I don't think that part of it is good for the game, and the league does need to look into it, especially if Oklahoma City wins back-to-back championships in large part because of this. Look, I'm all Knicks at this point. I hope they go on. I'm not a Knicks fan. I never have been, but I like those huge fan bases in a big market that haven't won in many years. And when they get a chance to play for a championship, it's always cool to watch those fan bases. So I'm all Knicks moving forward. Maybe the Knicks can, do God's work and put SGA and his flopping out of the finals and not let that team win back-to-back championships.
I know Knicks fans are hoping so, Chad. I don't know if we spoke to you during the SEC meetings about Sankey. If we did, excuse me for asking the question again. But there was a question asked about the SEC compared to the Big Ten. And listen, we're in this, SEC bubble, and it's great. And we perceive the SEC to be one way. But has their perception across, the landscape of college sports, has that changed as far as them being, at the top of the mountain?
I mean, 100%. It's changed. And I like Greg Sankey. And Greg Sankey's job is to sell the SEC at all costs and always say things that are going to benefit the SEC. So I know that's part of the gig for him. But, I mean, he came across like the Cavs coach talking about how analytically they won all 3 games when they were down 0-3, when you look at the analytics of it, when he talks about the SEC versus the Big Ten. The SEC for years, DMase, had no problem propping up the national champion coming from that conference, right? They've done it in baseball, I think, and softball now too. They want to sell that we have the national championship, so we are the best conference. Well, now that the shoe is on the other foot and the Big Ten can tout that, the SEC can't run and hide to, well, if you look analytically at our conference and top to bottom and the strength of schedule and everything else, we're still the best, which, by the way, he's right. Mm-hmm. The SEC top to bottom is better than the Big Ten top to bottom. But the top of the Big Ten is at the top of the mountain now for the last few years. So you have to acknowledge that. You can't pick and choose your arguments and say, well, now it's all about strength of schedule and quality of conference 1 through 16, where before it was all about who was the national champion. So, I think Greg Sankey's just doing his job, and that's to prop up the SEC, but I also don't think anyone should buy it. The Big Ten's on top right now. And the SEC, it's fine to acknowledge that in this moment, the Big Ten owns college football.
Now, will we ever see a collective bargaining between the players and, those that represent the upper echelon of college sports? Because it seems like they're trying to get bipartisan legislation passed so some of these things can be put back in order or some of these guardrails can be put on. But ultimately, it seems like it's going to have to be collectively bargained, which means you're going to have a union on one side and then obviously what the NCAA is going to do on their side.
Yeah, I think, and I am not, privy to all the legalities of it, but I believe what Congress is trying to do right now, this is step one to bring the players in to then collectively bargain. So they have to get this passed through and get some regulation with this to then go and, okay, now the players can have a seat at the table and start to negotiate what a CBA would look like, what being employees at the university would look like, and all of those things. But absolutely. I mean, for this thing to be legit, players are going to have to be represented in some way. It's just going to have to be the stakeholders of the sport. I mean, I don't, they keep running to Congress to fix it. I don't think that's the answer. It's going to have to be the athletic directors, the coaches, the boosters, the player agents, the players, everyone that's a stakeholder in college sports is going to have to get together and they're going to have to negotiate something that makes sense. And to do that, you're going to have to give something up. And we hear it with Greg Sankey all the time. No one is willing to give anything up. There have been people who have talked about at some point you have to do what's best for the good of the game and not what's best for you. But when it comes time to put your money where your mouth is, no one does it. They do what's best for them. And then everybody runs off into their separate corners and nothing gets accomplished. So for us to have any resolution, guys, somebody's going to have to swallow their pride and say, yeah, I'm going to take less money or I'm going to do this because it is what's right for the health of the entire situation. And hopefully that happens sooner rather than later.
Now, Chad, I was just thinking, and I don't know why I haven't thought of this before, and it may just be because it's not going to happen or it's just crazy. Eventually, yes, they're going to have to set up some type of collective bargaining. They're going to have to form a union, which Northwestern tried to do many years ago, and they shut it down. I'm pretty sure they wishing they would have did it then, and they wouldn't have the headache they have now. But when you involve a union, everything is collectively bargained. I now become an employee. How does that affect school?
Yeah, I think school's optional. I mean, at that point, I really think you're looking at, you could go to school if you want.
Wow.
and you can entice guys to do that. But I mean, I think college sports is over, as you know it. Like, if you don't want to go to school and you want to be an adjunct employee of Michigan State football, DMase, you can do that and not attend classes. I think that's kind of what it looks like. And people will, cynical people say, well, that's going on now. Guys, they never step foot in the classroom. Everything's online. They're not really concerned about getting a degree. They're just there to play sports anyway. So what's the matter? There's just something very unsavory about the thought of that, though.
Yeah,
that,
that's what I'm
you're
saying.
going to have guys who are just living in the city that are just paid.
That's minor league.
To come and play for the team. Yeah. I mean, and look, again, the cynic will say, well, it's already minor league. It's minor league for the NFL. And yes, it is. But part of this whole deal was you're also going to give people a free opportunity to get a degree and go do something else once they're done playing. And I don't want that to be eliminated. But I do think that if it's collectively bargained and they're all employees, then it's no different than being a professor or a janitor at the school. I mean, you're getting paid to do a service, and that service is not to go to biology class. That service is to run routes or block for someone or go tackle someone. And that's the way it'll be.
Chad Withrow has been our guest on DMase Vin Gnadonic. He joins us every Friday. Chad, as always, a pleasure. We'll catch up next week.
Yep. Have a great weekend, guys. Thanks.
615-737-1025. Let's talk a little bit more about this bubbling feud between Texas Tech and Texas. You know me. I love a good promo, and that's what Joey McGuire did for Steve Sarkisian. We'll discuss that coming up next. 615-737-1025. Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, 1025 The Game.
Sark, we played him. We got our butts kicked the last time we played him. We're 1-1 against Texas since I've been there. And I said, there's no way they're talking about us, because Sark's a pretty tough guy. His teams are really tough. And I would think that if he was talking about us, that he would call us out. Like, he wouldn't just say, just kind of this comment of, well, there's another team in our state. And so I guess he was talking about us. So I've actually talked to Keith Patterson and I've talked to GJ Kinney, and they're willing to take our games, and Abilene Christian will go to Texas State. We'll buy our contract out of Abilene Christian. I'm sure, because Texas has got a lot of money, they can buy their contract out. But I do know there's a lot of Red Raiders that will help them buy that contract out if they don't want to. And they can come to Lubbock week 1. And, we can figure out if their 2s and 3s can win this conference.
That was Texas Tech head coach Joey McGuire calling out Texas head coach Steve Sarkisian after Sarkisian made a comment that many people believe was aimed at Texas Tech recently. He said, quote, "There's a team in our state in another conference with a schedule that I would argue if I played with our 2s and 3s, we could go undefeated and they'll probably make the CFP this year." And it was led to believe that Sarkisian was talking about Texas Tech. So Joey McGuire says, you know what? Put up or shut up, buddy. Come play us at week 1. We'll pay the other teams we were supposed to play, and we'll settle this on the field. But as we were just talking with Chad Withrow, there's no way Texas is going to do this. Mm-hmm. Connor, correct me if I'm wrong. Texas plays Ohio State
week 2.
Week 2.
Yes.
So there's no way that Texas is going to play Texas Tech and then play Ohio State. So this is why I think Steve Sarkisian, with all of the attention on Lane Kiffin, the comments he made in Vanity Fair, I think Sarkisian has actually had a worse offseason from a public relations standpoint, because there's no way Texas can win this, because Texas Tech has laid out the challenge. If you think that your 2s and 3s can go undefeated in our conference, then come play us and find out. And Texas is not going to do anything about it. So Texas Tech says, hey, we threw out the challenge. Texas looks like it has some egg on its face.
This is a lose-lose for Texas. This reminds me of, the first Rocky. And Apollo Creed just, he picked Rocky out. And his trainers, after watching, it's like, man, you may not want to fight this dude. No, he's going to do it. He's going to do it. You win nothing from fighting Rocky Balboa. Nothing whatsoever. What happens? He takes the fight, and basically it ends in a draw. And then Rocky career goes to be Rocky 10. And Apollo, he had his career. Unfortunately, in the movie, he passes away because of a Drago hit. But this is one gamesmanship by both guys, I believe. I think Texas, there may have been some bad blood there. So Sarkisian threw a little jab. But if you're going to offer up your second and third team, you need to talk to them first, and have them go and play a damn good Texas Tech team. Like, you're setting yourself up for failure. But he understands that under no scenario would that ever happen. Ever. Sark knows it. And Texas Tech coach is calling his bluff. Like, okay, we have agreed. We've talked to the team that we're going to play. They have agreed to play the team that Texas is going to play, and they do their thing, and you and I get it on. And as we see, Texas is mute, and they will remain mute.
So McGuire later confirmed to The Athletic that he did text both coaches at Abilene Christian and Texas State ahead of his comments. At least one of those coaches took it as tongue-in-cheek, according to another person familiar with the exchange. Such a change is not expected to actually happen this late in the year. Those Texas Tech officials would certainly welcome it. I also believe some billionaire booster for Texas Tech said that he would be willing to foot the bill to buy out the
What's
contracts.
the contract? $2 million. Oh, here, take it.
Right. The contracts
Yeah.
with Texas State and Abilene Christian.
It's like, here,
So,
take it.
I mean, this was a PR masterclass by Joey McGuire.
Yes.
Because he knows, as I said before, he knows that Texas is unwilling to do this. Texas isn't going to take the risk of playing Texas Tech in week 1 before the Longhorns play Ohio State in week 2. So Joey McGuire can puff out his chest and say, we threw down the gauntlet. We challenged the Longhorns, and they balked.
We don't back down.
We do not back down. So once again, I mean, the whole basket weaving comment that Sarkisian made about Ole Miss around the same time that Lane Kiffin said everything he said about Ole Miss. I mean, I don't think he needed to apologize for that. He actually did. But this is the second misstep that Sark has made this offseason.
And he hasn't apologized for this, has he?
Not to my recollection.
Oh, okay. But he apologized for the basket weaving.
He said, I could have said my macroeconomics or something like that. Well, you know, basket weaving is basket weaving. And as we've discussed,
I do
basket
not
weaving
frown down on those who basket weave.
is harder than you think.
Exactly.
But as I said, as a wrestling enthusiast, Connor is one as well. I love a good promo. And this is what that was. Joey McGuire cut a promo on Steve Sarkisian, called him out, and Sarkisian didn't come out to the ring.
You know what's going to happen? I'm calling it right now. They will meet in the college football playoffs. Both teams. They will meet each other. This is going to be the first game.
Connor, what do you think about that?
That is what's going to happen.
I think it only counts if Texas plays their 2s and their 3s whenever they meet up.
And then everybody would be saying, hey, listen, why aren't your 2s and 3s playing? Why you got to play Arch Manning? Why you can't go to your 2s and 3s?
You got to back yourself up,
Exactly.
man. You said you could do it. Show us.
It's
No, but I do think Sarkisian has talked himself into a hole. Like DMase said, this is a lose-lose situation for them. Speaking of wrestling out of it, reminds me of, do you remember right before WrestleMania 39 when Theory and John Cena cut up on each other? And Cena said, it's a lose-lose for you. If you beat me, then that's the high of your career. But if you lose, you have to live with that shame. This is how I feel about that. I feel like if Texas beats Texas Tech, then great. They backed themselves up, but that's the high of their season. If they lose to Texas Tech, they are not what they say they are, and they have to live with that throughout the rest of the season.
Yeah.
Wesson Hermitage on your Rocky analogy says, G DMase, thanks for the spoiler alert. I was going to watch that.
No, there's no. If you had Rocky 1 has been out, 50 years damn near?
There is a statute of limitations.
There's a statute of limitations
when it comes to spoilers. Rocky, the first Rocky was released in 1976.
Yes, so
literally 50 years.
Exactly.
It's been 50 years, Wes. If you haven't seen it,
shame on you, Wes.
If you haven't seen it, well, I mean,
and especially if
we gave you a 50-year head start. You're probably not even 50 years old, but we gave you a 50-year head start.
And if you have watched the other Rockies but haven't watched Rocky 1, shame on you.
You heard it here first. 615-737-1025. Coming up next, Terry McCormick will join us. He was out at Titans OTAs today. We'll get his thoughts on what he saw specifically from Cam Ward and Carnell Tate, but we'll get his thoughts on today's open practice coming up next. 615-737-1025. 1025, by the way, is your racing station. This weekend, catch all the action as NASCAR comes through the Nashville Superspeedway on 1025 The Game, presented by City Auto and Nelson's Greenbrier Distillery. Today is the Allegiance 200 at 6:30. Tomorrow is the Sports Illustrated Resorts 250 at 6. And on Sunday, the Cracker Barrel 400 at 5. Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, 1025 The Game. DMase, Vingan, and Donick, 1025 The Game. Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, Connor Newt here with you. Things are not going well for the Denison Big Red. Willie Donick in Ohio watching his son Mahoney in the D3 championship opening round in baseball. Denison down 4-1 in the top of the ninth. Denison has won 44 consecutive games. So let's see if the Big Red can turn it around for our friend Willie Donick. But in the meantime, let's go to our phone line, driven by Wilson County, Hyundai.com, and welcome in veteran Titans reporter Terry McCormick, who was live at Titans OTA practice today. Hi, Terry. How are you?
I'm well. How are you guys?
We are well. Thank you so much for joining us. So, Terry, you were there. Give us your key takeaways from today's open practice. What stood out to you?
Well, I think the thing that stood out most to me was the thing that stood out to a lot of other people there, that Carnell Tate looks the part. He made two really good catches today. I think the one-handed grab that you've been seeing that the Titans put out, that you've been seeing kind of make the rounds on social media in the last couple of hours, happened right in front of me. And I turned to one of the other reporters there. We were both like, oh, my gosh, that's just crazy. Now, I know it's OTAs. The pads haven't gone on. And, you know, there's always a rush to anoint some guy when he does well early on. But Carnell Tate looks the part so far. And I think that if you're a Titans fan, that has to be good news for you.
You led me into my next question, Terry, because you have been at this a long time. So you know you can be suckered in by how someone does in practice. As you mentioned, Carnell Tate showed out in his first open OTA, and it sounds like he did so once again today. In the early going, how does Carnell Tate compare to other young receivers you have covered in your time here on the beat?
I think he looks different. And I'm going to use a couple of other guys at different positions to kind of point this out. There's certain guys that just look different when they're out there on the field, and you can tell that they have a chance to be special. Javon Curse looked that way. Chris Johnson looked that way. Carnell Tate is showing flashes of looking different like that, like he could be something that, could turn into something special if he's coached the right way and develops the right way and the team around him improves in the right way. But like I said, it's still very early. There was a time, one training camp, where everybody was just up in arms over the way that Justin Hunter was dominating in training camp on the practice field. Well, come to find out, it wasn't that Justin Hunter was dominating on the practice field. It was that the Titans wound up with the worst secondary in the league that year. And we were seeing Justin Hunter, who was just an average guy who occasionally would flash big, make plays against the secondary that needed a lot of work.
The other receiver, Terry, I'm wondering about is Alec Iamander. With the additions of Tate and Wan'Dale Robinson, plus you have the return of a healthy Calvin Ridley, how much is Iamander at risk of losing targets, and what can he do to prevent that?
Well, I think he kind of is in danger of losing some targets because they have, at least on paper, upgraded with Tate, Robinson in the slot. If Calvin Ridley can come back and give you something, then he would be ticketed to be the other starter. And then there's still Chim Dike, his fellow rookie from last year, that is in the mix as well. But Iomander's a guy that, he got a lot of run last year as their number one or number two guy, he and Dike, because they were all they had by the end of the year with Ridley out and, not a lot else in the cupboard. They got a lot of run last year as fourth-round rookies, maybe more so than they would on most teams. And I think that, it's not the worst thing for him to slot in as a third, fourth, or fifth guy, because he does have experience, a little bit of what he can do. And, if he slots in as your fourth or fifth guy, then you got to feel pretty good about where the wide receiver room is heading.
We've gotten this far into the conversation, Terry, without asking you about Cam Ward. What was your evaluation of Ward today, as well as in the first OTA that you saw?
I thought he was a lot sharper in the first OTA that I saw. None of the quarterbacks had a particularly impressive day today, I didn't think. There were few good throws here and there. There was, you saw the throw that Ward made on the one-handed catch by Tate, and then on the other, catch that Tate had, where he also went up over a defensive back in the 2-minute drill. Cam put the ball at the only place where his receiver could get it. But, there were some misfires here and there. The one thing that I like about Cam, and I think that this is the thing that is kind of different from him and the way it was in 2024 with what happened with Will Levis, is that, yes, Cam was kind of prone to fumbles. But when the ball goes in the air, it doesn't seem like Cam puts the ball in harm's way very often. And, maybe some of that is, a lot of that is by design, because they don't want him to take the big risk and things like that. But to me, that's one of his best attributes, is that he does not put the ball in harm's way a lot. And I think that, overall in these OTAs, you're starting to see him get comfortable with Tate. You're starting to see him get comfortable with Robinson. Still a work in progress as the offense kind of gears up and gets going. But I think he had what I would call an average day today, after having last week when we saw him, I would say probably a B+ to A- day.
We'll talk with Terry McCormick, Main Street Media, and TitansInsider.com. Now, Terry, let's go back to Alec, because I think you're right in the sense of, you look at the three guys ahead of him, which means he ultimately is going to lose more targets. But if you're thinking about it, wouldn't he be the most important person for this reason? Because of Calvin Ridley and his, inability to stay healthy throughout a season. So if indeed he does go down, Alec, to me, has proven more than, say, a DK at that position, that I would want to trust him out there over DK at this particular time, because then you can shift, guys over. If you need to shift Tate over to the Z, you can shift Tate to the Z and put Alec at the X where he feels more comfortable. But wouldn't he be a guy that the Titans are thinking about, hey, we got to make sure this guy understands and knows what he's doing?
Oh, absolutely. I think, for lack of a better term, he maybe has become your new Nick Westbrook-Akine, as a guy who is kind of your utility guy, your super sub, you guy that you know that maybe he's not getting the reps or he's not getting the targets that some of these other guys are getting, but when you put him out there, he can get the job done. So, yeah, I think that's a very important point that you make, and I think that it's going to be a big camp for both Iron Manor and DK to see how they develop, especially with more competition in the room and right now ahead of them on the depth chart.
Now, we've heard about Saleh's defense, and in particular how they love to rotate those defensive linemen. How has things look from them? I'm just talking about from a speed and communication standpoint out there for the defense.
Looks pretty good. I mean, not all the pieces are out there. Jeffrey Simmons has not been out there. We've not seen Jermaine Johnson or John Franklin Myers. A lot of these guys we've not seen yet. They'll be in, I'm assuming, for the mandatory minicamp. But, it's really been several of the same guys from last year with one or two new faces. Solomon Thomas has been in. In fact, he had an interception today on a play similar to how Will Levis was picked in Miami in that game right before he hurt his shoulder. Levis threw a ball kind of underneath on a screen, and Thomas kind of slipped in and jumped the route. Now, I think the play may have been called back because of an offside penalty, but still a nice athletic play from him as one of those rotational guys. The one thing that Saleh talked about when asked about the defensive line in terms of how he wants to go, he wants to have 8 or 9 guys dressed on game day. He wants to rotate those guys through 3 to 4 plays max, and then he wants to make sure that on third downs he's got a fresh Jeffrey Simmons, or he's got, and the rest of those guys that he designates as his best pass rushers ready to go chase the quarterback, feeling like that some of the other guys on the unit can be more of the run-stopping guys who do the grunt work on first and second down, so that he can keep Jeffrey Simmons fresh and playing fewer snaps, but more important snaps.
Now, we had a conversation last week, right around this time, about, how vital it was going to be for the Tennessee Titans. Not necessarily that they need to be in the Super Bowl. It would be great. But how vital, how critical it will be for this team to be fielding a playoff caliber team. That's true. But do you think it needs to be even before that?
Well, I think that by the time you move into the new stadium, you need to have a good product. I think this year to me is kind of a transitional year with a new head coach, new offensive staff. You're pretty much new across the board with a lot of free agents, some draft picks that you're counting on, and some young guys that have been here the last couple of years, like Cam Ward, like Jim DK, like Alec Manor, that you're counting on building on what they did last year. I think, to me, 2026 is a transitional year where you want to get everybody on the same page, everybody rolling in the same direction, and you want to see the overall talent level and performance level of this team take a jump so that you're not a bottom feeder anymore like you have been for the last couple of years. You want to see this team be able to, if not get in the conversation for a playoff spot this year, you want them to at least be competitive so that, it's not 17-3 before people, make their first trip to the concession stand. And so I think that's important for this team this year, with an eye that if they can stack one more off season, that this team could be maybe a contender in 2027 when they head into the new stadium.
Now, I know they dealt with a lot of injuries last year on the defensive side of the ball, in particular with their secondary. And I know Denard Wilson did all he could to patch that thing together and make it as good of a defense, a secondary, as it could be at that particular time under those circumstances. But how much better do you think this secondary is going to be, say, from the secondary 2 years ago when they were healthy? Because then the defense was healthy, and that was probably the only bright spot of the team.
Yeah, I think it's going to hinge on a couple things. One, if the pass rush is there and it's there consistently without blitzing, then I think you'll see this secondary take a step forward. I think you'll see a little bit of, you remember how dominant it was when Albert Hainsworth and Kyle Vanden Bosch were wreaking havoc back in like 2006, 2007, those years there, and how the defense carried this team, in fact, into the playoffs a couple of years there. And I think that that group, if they can get close to that level, it's going to make the secondary's job a lot easier. Now, the other thing with the secondary, I like what they've done in terms of bringing in starters. They still have Amani Hooker. They're counting on Kevin Winston to be another safety. And then they've got a young guy in Marcus Harris at nickel. They went out and got free agents in Alante Taylor and Cordell Flott to play cornerback. But to me, the real question, and injuries are inevitable, the real question is who's filling in those spots if somebody goes down and misses 2 or 3 or 4 games. Do you have enough depth to sustain yourself and be able to get through that if you have injuries in the secondary? And right now, I'm not sure that they can say they do.
Now, do you think it would, going to Cam Ward, back to Cam Ward, do you think it would be wise? Because under this day ball offense, we've seen the quarterbacks each and every they've developed. Even Jackson Dart to a point, but he opened himself to concussions, and that sort of stunted him for that year because it was on and off the field. But the way that they used, Josh Allen and Jackson Dart and Daniel Jones, that running element, do you think they're going to use Cam in that same way? I know Cam lost some weight, but Cam to me isn't those type guys. Can he run? Yes, but I don't think he's, Josh Allen by no means, as an all-around quarterback, definitely not a runner, but he's nor is he Jackson Dart or Daniel Jones.
No, I agree with you 100%. I think Cam is not going to run to run. Cam is going to run only as a last resort. And when he's moving in the pocket, he's looking to find a throwing lane to get the ball out of his hands and get it to somebody else down the field. I think that's more his game rather than, just running him in RPOs or doing like Josh Allen and just taking off, because you're right. There's a big difference in physical size. He's not 6'4" and 240 pounds that can take a pounding, nor should you want him to. I think Cam is going to buy time in the pocket, but it's going to be to throw the football and get his receivers involved. I think running only comes to him as a last resort, in my opinion.
Terry, before we let you go, I'm fascinated by the online discourse about Tony Pollard because Tony Pollard has been a 1,000-yard rusher in each of the past 4 seasons. I know that threshold maybe not, it's not as impressive as it once was, but it's still an impressive feat. 4 consecutive years rushing for at least 1,000 yards. There was the public flirtation throughout the draft process with Jeremiah Love. And I feel like there are Titans fans out there who might be disappointed that Tony Pollard is still leading this running back group entering this season. Do you feel like Tony Pollard is underappreciated in this offense?
Somewhat. I'll give you an old school analogy here, Adam. You know, when Mickey Mantle retired as the center fielder for the Yankees back in the late 60s, they tried and tried and tried to find guys to be the next Mickey Mantle. Well, there's no next Mickey Mantle. Just like there's no next Derrick Henry. The next guy in is going to have a hard time living up to Derrick Henry's billing. Tony Pollard is just fine as a running back, but he's not a superstar like Derrick Henry. He's a serviceable back who can handle the bulk of the workload. You know, you give a few carries here to Tajay Spears, you give a few carries to the rookie Nick Singleton. Tony Pollard heads up that group. He's not a superstar, but he's definitely serviceable.
Terry McCormick has been our guest on DMase, Vingen, and Donick. You can read his work at Main Street Media as well as TitanInsider.com. Terry, thanks so much for your time. We'll do it again soon.
All right. Thanks for having me.
615-737-1025. Let's stay on the wide receivers because the Titans wide receivers were part of an interesting story I read today on ESPN.com. So we'll keep it on the receivers coming up next. 615-737-1025. We are broadcasting from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership, where the buzz is always about great service.
Hey, if you lived in Middle Tennessee area for any time, then you've seen how wild our weather can be. From winter storms, tornadoes, to flooding, we've seen it all. Like many of you, the winter storm earlier this year caught me unprepared. I lost my power for 7 days. I was 7 days out of my house, worrying about whether my pipes were going to burst, paying to stay in the hotel. But then I realized being prepared isn't optional. I will be ready the next time the weather emergency happens. I started looking for whole home generators and found Tri-State Water, Power, and Air. When they've been in business for over 30 years, specializing in generators for more than half of those, which is all great. But the reason I chose to go with them and why I looked them up was because of the reviews and the confidence the other homeowners shared with their experience with Tri-State Water, Power, and Air. When they came to my home, they did a free on-site assessment, made sure my generator fit my home for me and my family. The thing I appreciated the most is they didn't try to oversell me. They just got straight to the answers, turnkey, and they handle everything from installation to long-term services. If anything ever goes wrong, I'm not calling around because I hate to do that. I'm making one call to Tri-State Water, Power, and Air because they've got me covered, and I know they will have you covered. And that's the kind of relationship I want. So look, the weather's not slowing down. It's been raining a tad bit today, but be ready, okay? So call Tri-State Water, Power, and Air and protect your home and your family. Find them at tristatewhilewait.com. That's tristatewhilewait.com.
DMase, Vingan, and Donick, 102.5 The Game. Derek Mason, Adam Vingan here with you. Some sad news to report. Denison's 44-game winning streak has come to an end. Mahoney Donick in the Big Red fall 5-1 to East Texas Baptist in the opening round of the Division III College World Series. It is a double elimination tournament, so Denison is not out, but the Big Red have to take the long way now. They will face John Hopkins tomorrow morning as they hope to stay alive in the tournament.
The streak was wiped clean.
Willie says that 4 balks were called against the Big Red in the 9th inning.
Oh, wow.
No, four total, 3 in the 9th inning.
Wow.
4 balks called against us, 3 in the 9th inning.
Wow. I got to hear about what they really balked. I got to hear what Willie has to say Monday.
Will this be a Hunter Yurachek level?
Yes,
rant?
exactly. Absolutely.
Yes, if you want to trigger Willie, just bring up Hunter Yurachek, as I did on purpose yesterday, just to get him riled up. But thank you to Terry McCormick for joining us as he was out at Titans OTAs today. I'm glad that we could get a first-person perspective of what happened at practice today. And you heard what he said about Carnell Tate. And I know Titans fans are going to be very, very, very excited to hear that. Titans haven't had a receiver like that since A.J. Brown. And we'll get to A.J. Brown because maybe we finally see the trade of A.J. Brown in a couple of days. But it's been a long time, or it seems like it's been a long time, because these past few seasons have taken years off of our lives since the Titans have had a receiver who can make the impact that Carnell Tate could potentially make. And over on ESPN.com, Ben Solak did a story ranking the top 10 biggest position upgrades this offseason. And at number 4, he had the Tennessee Titans wide receivers. And here's something that I want to talk about a little bit more, because I asked Terry this question. I feel like one of the make or break Titans players in terms of who needs to have an outstanding offseason, an outstanding training camp to really cement their role on Robert Saleh's team. One of the first players who comes to mind is Alec Iamaner. And Alec Iamaner led the Tennessee Titans with 89 targets last season. Chimdike had 74. Chikakonkwo, no longer on the team, had 79. And as Ben Solak writes, Iamaner and Dike showed valuable flashes as playmakers, but neither did enough to emphatically secure a full-time role in the offense. Iamaner struggled with drops. Dike was a wonderful returner with great speed, but couldn't connect with Cam Ward on deep patterns and struggled to break tackles on underneath routes. And as you said, Derek, Dike is going to have a role on this team because of what he was able to do as a returner. He's an all-pro as a rookie. But when I think of the hierarchy of Titans receivers, you have Carnell Tate, you have Wan'Dale Robinson, you have Calvin Ridley. So to me, at the moment, Iamaner is probably no better than 4th. And I wonder if he can carve out a role similar to, as Terry said, Nick Westbrook-Akine. But I do wonder about Iamaner and what his role is going to be.
I guess, yes, technically, he is sort of he's really not the 4th receiver, technically. If you just want to rank receivers, just because you would put DK in front of him because of his ability to play special teams and be an all-pro at it. So that elevates him to that 4th
But does that matter as much in terms of playing receiver? I know that DK was an all-pro returner.
It does from this standpoint. He showed that he could be viable in offense. Now they got to figure out how to use him more. But he showed in spurts that he could be a guy that can find a role within our offense on a regular basis. Is he necessarily a X, Z, or Y? Or H? He can be all of them because he has that ability to kind of go across the board. So really, to me, I look at it from this standpoint. Alec is the second guy. He's on deck. That's what he is. He is on deck. So Calvin goes down. They are going to either shift Carnell Tate over and insert Alec, or they're going to insert Alec. And I'm saying if we were playing now. Now, when camp goes on, everybody is sort of, the way they perform in camp will dictate where we put them and how much time they get. But if I'm just looking at it based upon last season and you just add in Carnell Tate, it's if Ridley goes down, either Tate stays at the X and they put Alec in at the Z, or they shift Tate over so they can use him more as movement. They put Alec at his primary position, which is the X. So I see him as the guy on deck. But I've said this about Alec, is he has to come back physically, not just mentally. He has to come back physically a different receiver. For this reason, he's their big body receiver. He's another guy because Cam Ward needs a bigger radius. Hence, they went out and got Carnell Tate because his radius is a lot larger than what Cam probably had last year. But Alec sort of fits in that mode too. So you have these receivers other than Wan'Dale Robinson that are all over 6 foot with these huge wingspans. If you can find a way, if Alec can allow his body or work his body to mature and he mature mentally in his game, then it's easier for them to possibly shift Alec into the X and move Carnell Tate over to the Z, whereas now he's in movement. And if we want to put him on the line, we can also do that. But to me, he's the one guy that I'm looking at and saying, if he comes back ready to play, developed, and if he takes that next step that I believe he can take, he will end up supplanting possibly Calvin Ridley. That's just the way I say it. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but or not even supplanting him, getting more time, because I've seen that happen.
Albert Breer of Sports Illustrated had a note about the Titans in one of his latest notebooks, and he said, quote, "I've seen some buzz around Titans rookie Carnell Tate, and I can add a little something to it. I had someone there tell me something to the effect of, quote, either he's really, really good or we're in trouble at receiver," end quote. Yeah, the comment was made a little tongue-in-cheek, but it also reflects a real belief that Tate should become a focal point in Brian Daboll's passing game and for Cam Ward relatively quickly. Going back to what Ben Solak wrote at ESPN.com, obviously, there is a lot riding on Carnell Tate, and if practice is any indication, he could be well on his way to being that receiver. Again, we have to caution you not to freak out too much about what you see at practice. And 12-second clips from the Titans social media account. It was an impressive catch that Carnell Tate made today. But as Terry McCormick laid out, think of all of the players, and specifically at wide receiver. Think of all the players you have been excited about because of a clip on social media that the Titans have posted. I think we did this exercise last summer, and we may have to do it again this summer. Titans training camp all-stars, where we looked back at players who were the talk of training camp for the Tennessee Titans and the preseason games, but never amounted to anything once the regular season started, if those players even made the team out of camp to begin with. And I'm not insinuating that Carnell Tate's going to succumb to that fate. I think Carnell Tate's going to be an excellent wide receiver. But you do have to be careful. Mm-hmm. You have to keep things in perspective. But even if Carnell Tate doesn't show out immediately, with the addition of Robinson, you got a healthy Calvin Ridley. If you get a step from Iamaner and Dike, you have a fairly deep wide receiver room for Cam Ward.
Yeah, you do. But it will be beneficial or vital for Carnell Tate to, kind of elevate himself into the number one wide receiver, the number one option for Cam Ward, because again, they went out and drafted him 5th overall because they felt he could be that type of player. You're not going to draft somebody that high, and he turns out to be, well, they did before, but they don't want to do it again, when you draft a guy and he's nothing more at best a really good number 2. No, Cam needs a number 1. And I think this pass catching group, um, unlike last year's, and I didn't think last year's was horrible. They just didn't have enough guys once Calvin went down that were top tier guys. They had guys that were good guys, good players, but you need somebody to be more than a good player when you're a struggling team. But you fast forward this season, they go out and they get Wandale Wright, who I think is a really good player at that H position or that slot position. And Calvin Ridley, I think now he can fit into his natural role, especially as he started getting older. And he's dealt with his injuries as the number 2. And you're banking on Carnell Tate to take a step quickly to becoming that number 1 guy. And when I mean number 1, I don't mean based upon numbers. That's not what I mean. I mean guys that are going to make those catches when those catches are there to be made, like those crucial catches when it's 3rd and 10 and we need this, or 4th and 5 and we need this. You may not have to catch the whole game, but when we throw it to you you make that catch. That's what A.J. Brown was a lot of times, because they didn't throw the ball enough. But when they needed A.J., he was there to bail them out. I think there may have been one time, and that was in his rookie year, and it was a slant. But outside of that, when they needed a play, A.J. made it for him. They need Carnell Tate to be that. And the more plays he make like that, the more he will elevate himself to be the number 1 guy.
By the way, Cam Ward's performance today at OTAs, friend of the show, Nick Suss of the Tennessean, broke it down for us in the Tennessean. Cam Ward in the standard team period, 3 for 5 with 1 missed throw behind his receiver. And 7 on 7s, he went 5 for 7, 1 pass dropped, 1 gorgeous highlight reel throw on a wheel route to Bryce Oliver that Oliver was able to reel in down the sideline. In the 3rd down period, 4 for 6, 3 conversions, including the Tate one-handed catch, and 5 for 11 in the 2-minute drill. Red zone stall, 1 4th down conversion on a well-timed seam route throw to Wandale Robinson. Suss notes, more than half of the projected starting defense wasn't present for this practice, and more than half of Ward's throws were in drills that simulated 3rd and long and 2-minute situations. So the degree of difficulty for a lot of his throws was higher than a standard practice. Matthew from Jolton says, I could see the Titans using Chim Dike as a gadget player on offense, even in the backfield as a scat back. David from Murfreesboro says, if KJ Osborne is hungry, he is our number 4. I saw him for 3 years with the Vikings. I'm telling you, he is a Pro Bowl caliber wide receiver. Now, it doesn't appear that KJ Osborne played last season. Was he injured?
I don't know much about KJ Osborne. If he didn't play last year, he must have been injured.
But he had a 3-year stretch between 2021 and 2023 where he caught 15 touchdowns and had 1,845 total receiving yards. That's 615 per season. So, I mean, Osborne's in the rotation. I would assume that the Titans, if given the choice, would lean more toward Iamander as someone they are hoping to draft and develop. 615-737-1025. We will take your thoughts on the Titans wide receiver room. Ben Solak of ESPN.com says it's one of the most upgraded position groups, most improved position groups of the NFL offseason. 615-737-1025. Coming up next, let's talk about a former Tennessee Titans wide receiver who could finally be on the move on Monday. We will discuss that coming up next. 615-737-1025. Speaking of the Titans, all of our off-season coverage here on 1025 The Game is presented by Tennessee Brewworks, locally brewed, community-driven. Tennessee Brewworks, the official craft beer of the football off-season coverage here on 1025 The Game. DMase, Vingan, and Donick 1025. The Game. Derek Mason, Adam Vingan here with you. Ask DMase coming up at the top of the hour. So if you have a question for Derek, text us 615-737-1025. You can also call us at the top of the hour as well if you've got a question for Derek as part of Ask DMase, our Friday at 5 o'clock tradition. 615-737-1025. Let's continue the theme of wide receivers. The NFL's worst kept secret could be the blockbuster trade of the summer, and that is A.J. Brown leaving Philadelphia, probably going to New England. There have been some rumors that maybe New England isn't the destination, but I believe we all believe that A.J. Brown is going to be reunited with Mike Vrabel with the New England Patriots. And the Philadelphia Eagles have been waiting and waiting and waiting. They've known for months that they're probably trading A.J. Brown, but they've had to wait until after June 1st so that they can spread out the dead money. Well, fortunately, June 1st is Monday. So, Derek Mason, by early next week, will A.J. Brown finally be traded from Philadelphia, probably to New England?
Oh, man. I know New England hopes so. I'm not sure if they, have a deal in place already, and they're just waiting on June 1st to arrive, and the trade can be, happen smoothly or not, or if there is a second or third team that could potentially jump in there. I've heard Kansas City maybe trying to, stick their foot in the water to see if they can acquire A.J. Brown. But either way, it's unfortunate that, he will not be with the Philadelphia Eagles, just like it was unfortunate he couldn't be here in Nashville, because I think he would have been phenomenal here, especially adding Cam Ward now. And maybe they wouldn't have had to draft Cam Ward had A.J. Brown still been a Tennessee Titan. But it's the problem, the thing that's so weird about this, and maybe he will not think about it until his career is over with, because I think a lot of times when you're in the moment, you're just thinking about what's going on at that particular moment and not necessarily being retrospective and sort of thinking out how you want your career to end and so forth and so forth. But he is too talented a receiver for this to be his third team. And it's not because of money. Well, the first him being, and that shouldn't have been about money. The Titans should have paid him. And then it seems like the contract really wasn't as much. Once you got down to the nuts and bolts of it, it really wasn't as much. You didn't get no more than what you would have gotten here with the Titans had you stayed. You got maybe, and I know me saying that it was a couple $1 million more per year. That's a lot of money. Believe me. I wish I had a couple of $1 million more per year.
He signed a 4-year, $100 million contract with the Eagles after being
But how much
traded.
of it was guaranteed?
$57 million.
And the Titans were sort of in that ballpark too. He ended up getting more AAV, average per year, than anything. But even with the Titans, I thought the Titans should have anteed up and paid him, or they should have been able to come very, very close where he didn't leave and go to Philadelphia. But being 4 years in Philadelphia, where you've clearly been the lead dog, clearly, even though Devontae Smith is great, AJ is clearly the lead dog there. Why did it turn south after 4 years? Well, it was really after 3 years. This stuff started coming up really after the Super Bowl year. So really, after 2 years, why did this thing started going left? That's the part that I'm worried about with him, because Vrabel and this and that, but what happens when you're not getting the targets?
Well, the difference is the Eagles are, I would guess, one of the few teams in the NFL that can absorb the loss of A.J. Brown.
Yes.
Because they have Devontae Smith. They drafted Mekhi Lemon in the first round. to replace A.J. Brown, more than likely. So in New England, I'm trying to think off the top of my head. Who is the Patriots' number one wide receiver entering this season?
Because they didn't trade.
I don't believe they brought back Stephon
Yes,
Diggs.
Stephon Diggs is not back.
On their depth chart, the number one wide receiver is Romeo Doubs. They went out and got Romeo
Yes.
Doubs from the Green Bay Packers. So you've got Romeo Doubs, you've got Kayshon Boutte, you've got Mac Hollins. Like A.J. Brown goes to New England, he is the lead dog again.
Mhm.
I believe Devontae Smith was starting to creep up on A.J. Brown in that regard in Philadelphia. Like they are equipped to handle the loss of A.J. Brown.
Mhm.
I think in New England, he goes back to being the alpha that was being that status was being challenged in Philadelphia.
I think that status will be challenged here. I mean, Romeo Doubs, again, he's not A.J. Brown, but I think he's more Devontae Smith than any as far as his impact. Now, he had an impact with Green Bay. Green Bay didn't keep him. Green Bay chose to let him be a free agent and signed. They didn't want to give him, obviously, the money that he was looking for, but he probably should have stayed there, considering, he probably didn't get exactly what he wanted by going to New England. But yes, he will be the lead dog, but there still will be this distribution thing because what made Tom Brady so great, what made Peyton Manning so great is their distribution. You didn't know who they were going to throw it to. That's what made Jalen Hurts the quarterback he was and still is. Obviously, having Saquon Barkley in the backfield doesn't hurt either, but he didn't just look to target one guy. He looked across the board, whether it was Devontae Smith or A.J. Brown or the tight end, because you can judge by the targets per game. He and Devontae were very close in regards to targets. Both of them had over 110 targets. I think A.J. may had 120 something or 130, and Devontae Smith was close behind. But is New England, what happens if Romeo Doubs becomes the guy that the quarterback start looking to more? That's the thing about it. It's not necessarily that, because AJ's a phenomenal player, but why didn't it work in Philadelphia when you arguably you're the lead dog, you're in a championship winning team, you're on a team that's going to be contending as long as Hurts is underneath center and Saquon's in the backfield, and that defense is what it is. They're going to be contending every year. I understand where New England is or where they hope to go, but why was it so toxic there? That's what I'm trying to figure out.
Skylar says the Eagles are dumb for not firing Nick Sirianni and hiring a coach like Mike Vrabel or Robert Saleh. Sirianni can't maintain the attitudes of guys like A.J. Brown and others on the Eagles.
He's a winning coach. You don't fire a Super Bowl winning coach. Obviously, it was working the first year or two, So at the end of the day, what I realized as I've gotten older, and I should have realized this in my younger years when I was playing. Listen, you're not going to get everything is not going to be peachy creamy. Okay. But we're all adults and we all should know how to work out our differences, like talking through them, especially in the locker room. And if you have a problem with that, y'all should be able to, it shouldn't affect how you perform on the field. It shouldn't.
One texter says, Dustin in Hopkinsville says, he won a Super Bowl, went to 2, elevated the team instead of being held back. I assume Dustin means why he left Tennessee for Philadelphia. But
I get the money and they were on a fast track to, make it to the Super Bowl. But I thought they were at that point while he was here. Vrabel was still here. The team was still doing well. I mean, so he would have been, had he stayed, maybe they would have still been on that fast track.
But do you think that Romeo Doubs is a legitimate threat to A.J. Brown for targets? Those would be the Patriots' top 2 wide receivers, Brown and Doubs. And Doubs, to me, I defer to you, Doubs, to me, isn't in the same tier as Smith. So Devontae Smith, I can understand Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown. They had roughly the same number of targets last season. I can understand A.J. Brown feeling threatened by Devontae Smith. Do you think he would also feel threatened by Romeo Doubs?
Threatened? No. I'm not sure if he was really threatened by Devontae Smith. I just think that sometimes when you've been a lead dog for some years, it's not a threat. It's almost like, don't forget about me. It's not that I'm threatened by the guy over here. It's, don't forget that, I've been, A1 the minute I got on this team. Don't forget what I can do, because when you throw it to me, I do those things still. So don't forget, I ain't worried about the young cat. The young cat gonna do what he got to do, and eventually, if they take him away, they're gonna start they're gonna start playing man on me, and I'm gonna get even more. So I don't think he ever felt threatened. I think it was, he didn't feel he was appreciated. That's what it was. It had nothing to do with Devontae Smith. He was gonna get his. He just felt underappreciated. I've been there, so I can speak on that. It's not that you feel threatened by that other guy on the other side or anybody else, because you know what you can do, but you just feel like, oh, y'all don't appreciate me no more, because it's sort of, we got the shiny toy. Even though Devontae Smith isn't the shiny toy, the kid's just flat out good.
615-737-1025. Perhaps we finally see A.J. Brown traded early next week. June 1st is Monday, so maybe on Tuesday, we finally see the trade everybody knows has been coming for months. A.J. Brown to the New England Patriots. 615-737-1025. It's Friday. It's almost 5. It's the off season, which means it's time for Ask DMase. If you have a question for Derek, call us, text us, 615-737-1025. It can be about sports. It can be about life. You name it. Keep it at least PG-13. 615-737-1025. Ask DMase. Coming up next, we are broadcasting from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership, where the buzz is always about great service. DMase, Vingan, and Donick, 1025. The Game. Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, Connor Newt here with you. Willie Donick, sadly, not with us today. He's also sad because his son's college baseball team lost its first game of the D3 College World Series. It's a double elimination tournament. But the Denison Big Red had won 44 consecutive games before losing 5-1 today. So we're letting Willie lick his wounds, and we'll hopefully catch up with a happier Willie Donick on Monday. But it's Friday at 5 o'clock, so it's time to ask DMase. If you've got a question for Derek, call us, text us, 615-737-1025. Our phone and text lines are driven by Wilson County Hyundai.com. Let's start on our phone line with Dustin in Laverne. Dustin, thank you for calling. Please go ahead.
Hey, what's up, guys? I hope you're having a great start to your weekend. Just had a couple quick questions. The first one was just kind of going off the AJ thing. I want to say it was Blaine was talking about how he didn't think it had anything to do with Smith, and I'm going to agree with him on that. And I wanted to get DMace's opinion on this part, but with AJ from being here and in Philly, it just seems like it's almost like he's like one of those girlfriends that everybody's had at one point in their life where like you could do 1,000 things right for them all the time, but they only seem to pay attention to like the 10 things that you do wrong. And those are like the hyper focuses for some reason. Cause I think I remember when he was with us, didn't he take like a month off of playing just for like mental health or something like that, which is fine. I'm not saying anything bad about mental health, but you know, even normal people that go to jobs can't take a month off of their job just because they're going through a hard time. You know what I mean? That's the first part. And then the second part is just, do you think that Carnell is going to be able to be that guy who's the number one for us? Or do you think he's going to be more of like a T. Higgins number 2 kind of role? And do you think we'll have to probably go look for another person receiver-wise in the draft in the next couple of years? So that's it for you.
Thanks for the call.
Thanks. As far as AJ, I don't know. And, you know, it's with him, he's such a hell of a talent. And I don't recall, maybe, you know, he did take, you know, I know he promotes in, you know, mental health. I know that. But did he take a month off or something like that?
I don't recall.
Yeah, I don't recall either. But if he did, I mean, obviously he needed it. But, and that's what I'm trying to figure out. Like, what is really going on? Because he's so talented. And it's not like he's a problem child off the field or anything. The kid's it seemed to be a great guy. Off the field, it seems to be, you know, from what we kind of gather on the field, and he seems to be cool. So what is it that has caused you to want to, you know, push your way or whatnot out of Philly when Philly has already won a championship, and in part because of you? They've been to a Super Bowl in part because of you, and they're still a good team in part because of you. Why do you want to? Is the pressure so much, or the microscope is so intense in Philly that he doesn't want to deal with that anymore? I wonder if do we just want to just play football and don't have to worry about that other stuff?
Not going to change in New England.
It's not going to be like Philly, I don't think. But it will be to a point, you know, where if he's not doing well, or if they see some friction, it will be talked about. Maybe not as viciously as it was in Philly, but it will be talked about. So I'm just trying to wrap my head around that with AJ. But as far as Carnell Tate, I think he does. I think his low end, honestly, and this is no knock on T. Higgins. I love T. Higgins. I thought he could come here and ultimately he could be the number one. But if the low end is T. Higgins, I'm still extremely happy because T. Higgins proved to me he could be a number one when they asked him to be a number one. People wanted him to be a number one. That's why Cincinnati chose to re-sign him, you know, to more money. So I think he will undoubtedly become the number one, and not just for the Titans. I think he will be seen across the league as a number one receiver.
Let's continue Ask DMase on our phone line with Chris. Chris, thank you so much for calling. Please go ahead.
Hey, guys. Yeah, Derek, I wanted to add on to the subject of AJ. And if you remember when he was with the Titans, he was the one that initiated the deal about the mental health issue. And nothing to be ashamed of. Millions of people deal with mental health issues. You just have to find the right help for your situation. And I remember Mike raised his side and supported him. And, but then there was issues. We all recognize that AJ was a great talent and is a great talent. But sometimes if things aren't quite right upstairs, and that's what I thought when John Robinson traded him away at the time, I was like, I hate losing him, but we don't have to deal with whatever little baggage he has, which wasn't much, but you wondered about in the locker room. And maybe that's the thing is AJ hasn't really found the right help.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for the call, Chris.
Yeah, I while Chris was talking, I was listening to him, but I was also sort of pulling because he's the second person that
brought up AJ Brown's mental
health. And listen, AI ain't always right, I don't think. Or Google, you got to double check Google. But it did say that during his time with the Titans, he opened up about battling depression. He thought his thoughts of harming himself in November 2020 and sharing his story. So he's always been an advocate for mental health, and that's something big, and it was strong of him to come out with it, because a lot of people don't want other people to know what they're dealing with, and AJ chose to do it. So maybe it's that with him in Philadelphia. I don't know. I just wonder when a guy like that's so talented, that has put up the numbers, that have helped you win the Super Bowl, help you go to another Super Bowl, and is a hell of a player off the field as he is on the field, why the breakup? It seems like it's like you look at that perfect couple, and every time you see them, it's just everything's not necessarily perfect, but things just seem good. And then all of a sudden, out of the blue, oh, they're getting a divorce. You start like, what? Like, even when I've been over their house, things just seem to be normal, and then it happens. Believe me, I can attest for that.
One texter says, if you can figure out what was wrong with Terrell Owens, you'll have your answer for AJ Brown. Same thing, different script. They're alpha divas, man.
Yeah, they are. And listen, all alpha A1 receivers have diva in them. Again, I've experienced it. So you have that in you. But sometimes it becomes, a little bit more than that. And I think, for whatever reason, in AJ's case, just like they brought up Terrell Owens, and Terrell Owens, another guy, hell of a player, great on the field just as well as off the field, but it just didn't work.
We've got a dad joke for DMase.
Oh, what is it?
Couple walks into a bar. Guy says, "Can I get a beer?" Bartender says, "Want one for your wife?" Guy says, "Sounds like a fair trade."
So my man was like, yeah, take my wife. Just give me an extra beer. That was a good one. That may have been the best one right there that we've ever heard on these airways.
B-Man on our text line says, you've got to ask DMase, has he taken his lady to Texas Roadhouse yet?
No.
If not, why? Inquiring minds want to know.
I have not taken my lady.
This is a long-running bit on the program.
So,
well, you don't eat meat, right?
Yeah, I don't. Well, no, I do, but I haven't been. I don't think I've ever been to Texas Roadhouse, ever.
Got some great rolls there, DMase.
Is Texas Roadhouse?
Is it a steak place?
It's a steakhouse chain. Yeah. Is Texas Roadhouse one of those places where you've got the cracked peanut shells all over the floor?
That's what's the name of that?
That's Longhorn Steakhouse, maybe. Yes. But I don't know.
Is it like Longhorns?
I don't know. You're asking the wrong guy about Texas Roadhouse. Okay.
Well, I'm not a beef. I don't eat beef, so and definitely not steak. I know it's beef, but
Maybe Connor can confirm. Does Texas Roadhouse have the cracked peanut shells on the floor?
No.
Okay, good.
That is Logan's Roadhouse.
Okay, Logan's Roadhouse. There's Logan's Roadhouse and Texas Roadhouse and Longhorn Steakhouse. You've got to differentiate. You've got to sit yourself apart.
Longhorn's the move. Longhorn's great.
Longhorn's great.
I ate there right after I graduated college a couple weeks ago. It's
Okay.
fantastic.
That was the place you chose to go.
Absolutely.
Good for you.
I've told this story before, but one of the funniest things I experienced in college was on Valentine's Day. One of my friends tried to pass off takeout from Maggiano's as a home cooked meal for his girlfriend on Valentine's Day. And it apparently worked.
Until now.
Well, Mike Fowler, if you're listening, I blew up your spot.
Enjoy the couch tonight.
15 years later.
Oh, man.
Who knows if they're
She
still
ain't gonna
together.
Forget about it. She ain't going to forget about it. They're still together.
Who knows? Wes from Hermitage says, question for DMase. In the future, will you agree to give a heads up before ruining a perfectly good movie next time?
Oh, my goodness. It was Rocky 1.
Which came
over
out 50 no,
years
exactly.
ago.
I think exactly 50 years ago. 1976.
This year. So if you have not seen Rocky, you've been through 5 decades. Well, at least 3, because you probably wasn't born for
Wes is not 50 years old.
That's what I'm saying. So you've been at least 3 decades or 2, and you have not seen Rocky. And if you have seen Rocky and you haven't watched Rocky 1, Wes, shame on you.
Let's establish this now. Let's state our position.
Yes.
What is the minimum amount of time for a movie to be out before you can spoil the premise?
Nowadays?
Yes.
Because they're in theaters like a month and then they're on Apple TV or something else. I'd give it a year.
Okay.
I'd give it a
Connor,
year.
what is the statute of limitations for spoiling a movie?
It depends on the movie. Like if it's like a big budget, part of a universe or whatever, I would go a year. But if it's like a little, independent kind of thing or something on Netflix or something, I give it 6 months.
Okay.
Wes says, I'm legit rolling and I am 72.
Oh, so you know what? You have no excuse now. You really have no excuse. You were 20 years old when that came out.
All right, Wes, I'm no longer defending you. I did not think you were 72 years old.
On the next episode of DVD, DMase ruins Smokey and the Bandit.
No, you weren't 20. Excuse. Yeah, you were 20 years old.
Yes.
You're 20 years
50
old.
years ago,
Exactly.
he
So
would
Wes,
have been in his early
shame
20s.
on you, Wes.
Jeff confirms that the Texas Roadhouse in Ocala, Florida, where he lives, has some peanut shells on the floor, but not as much as Logan's Roadhouse.
Was it the floor just dirty that day?
Maybe.
And they left peanut
I
shells
remember
on
the
floor?
first time I went to a Logan's Roadhouse or a Longhorns. I don't know. They all run together. And the peanut shells were on the floor. I did legitimately think. I'm like, did nobody sweep up before the shift started? Like, why is the floor so dirty?
It adds to the allure.
You know who loved Texas Roadhouse the most? We know Logan's kids. They love it because they get to they just get to throw the peanuts on the floor.
Wes
if
is
they're
not
allergic to
Wes
peanuts.
is not 72. He's 35. I knew you were not 72.
He's messing with it. So even you've had 2 decades where you could have seen that movie, and you chose not to because
One texter says, if the person you're telling the story to says, I haven't seen it, you don't spoil it. Other than that, tell everybody.
Okay, but what I'm saying is, okay, if I'm talking to that person directly and they say they haven't seen it, I'm saying, okay. But then after that, I'm going to give you an extra 3 months, depending on how many times we, see each other. I'm going to give you a couple extra months to watch it, especially if you seem interested in the movie.
Let's go to Dave on our phone line. Dave, thank you for calling. Please go ahead.
Hey, I have a question and an observation.
Go
My
ahead.
question for DMase is, what is the single best piece of advice you ever received as you were growing up?
And what's the observation?
The observation is, I have struggled with mental issues and depression. And there's been an awful lot of dismissive tone of voice by some of the callers talking about it, taking a month off or having a little problem. And when you're facing depression, there is no little problem. And when you're standing there at the abyss, you need to have a place to go and you need safe help. And I just don't want anyone to diminish, I don't care what your profession is, don't diminish someone's struggles like that.
Thank you for the
Thank
call,
you.
Dave.
Okay, best piece of advice I got, and I've got a lot in my younger years, not necessarily when I was a kid, but in my younger years. Don't expect, because people do it, and I find myself doing it at times too. Don't minimize someone else's issue because you don't think it's a big issue. I've learned that just because I may not think it's a big issue doesn't mean that person that's going through it doesn't believe it's a big issue to them. Now, some things are okay, but don't minimize. You may not necessarily agree or whatnot, but don't minimize, what they're going through. And that's sort of, just sort of too with the mental health. Don't minimize what someone is going through, because it may not be big to you, but it's big to them. It's big enough to them that they brought it to you.
One texter on the spoiler alert says 6 months for all movies except for The Sixth Sense, then never. Like Santa Claus can't reveal it.
Sixth Sense, you really can't, because it's one of those movies like, man, because it really, no, I can't even say that. I'm not going to even say it.
Don't say anything.
Yeah, I'm just going to leave it there.
You got to experience it.
Yeah, you got to experience. I'm not going to even touch it.
One texter says, the best piece of advice I ever got is all women are crazy. It's just the amount of crazy you want to deal with on a daily basis.
And they may think all men are dumb. It's just which part of dumb do you want to, take on each day?
Casey and Gallatin clarifying, guys, both Logan's Roadhouse and Texas Roadhouse used to have peanuts in a bucket, and you could throw the shells on the floor. COVID kind of wrecked that, and now they give you a bag of peanuts in a bucket to eat at your table. It is frowned upon to throw them on the floor now. Well, where's the fun in that?
Exactly.
I didn't know we had Texas Roadhouse decorum now.
I guess so.
It's like if you go to a certain, there are certain restaurants where there is obviously some decorum required. Mm-hmm. Texas Roadhouse, Logan's Roadhouse, Longhorn Steakhouse, you name it. Mm-hmm. I feel like the level of decorum isn't as high as other places. It's no Maggiano's. I mean,
Longhorn is relatively fancy. You're not taking your newlywed wife out there, but
some people are.
Well, yeah.
I mean, you just never know.
You never know.
Got a ball on the budget,
But as you get older, you appreciate a good chain restaurant with your significant other.
Yes.
I tell my wife all the time, let's go to Chili's.
Chili's is great.
You like Chili's?
Let's go to Chili's. Yeah.
What do you like? Do Chili's, or am I mistaking it with another restaurant?
Well, they're all the same.
Yeah, I guess so.
Chili's, Applebee's.
Applebee's, that's what I'm thinking about.
They're all
they had
the
a
same.
Skillet.
Yes.
They bring out the meat on the skillet. Yeah. They used to be cool back in the day.
Your food was coming when you heard that sound.
Absolutely.
But I'm like, you know what? Let's leave the kids at home with somebody else and let's go to Chili's and split a triple dipper. What do you say?
A triple dipper?
Yes.
What is that?
It's an appetizer where you can.
He doesn't even get a meal. He gets an appetizer.
A triple
We're
dipper.
on a budget. That's why we're going to Chili's in the first place.
Hey, you got a ball on the budget, man.
615-737-1025. We'll continue to take your questions for Ask DMase. I also have a question for DMase that was floating around social media. I would love his opinion on it as a former player. 615-737-1025. Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, 1025 The Game. DMase, Vingan, and Donick, 1025 The Game. Derek Mason, Adam Vingan. Continuing, ask DMase for just a little bit. Wes and Hermitage is on our phone line, who tried to hoodwink us and made us think he was 72 when he's actually 35. And now Wes is on the phone. Wes, thank you for calling. Go ahead.
True story. I don't know my age. I'm not 35. I just realized that I'm
How
34.
old are you?
I'm 34, dude. My math is just super.
What's going on
off.
today with you, Wes?
Come
You
on,
know,
Wes.
ever since my movie got ruined, I just haven't been the same.
You had long enough to see it, Wes.
Hey, man, look, I was sitting here working, and I'm like, you know what? Today's Friday, and I've been bamboozled at the biggest bamboozling point of all time. Y'all have forgotten what Fridays are all about.
And what's that?
Dad joke Friday. How did we get away from this?
You got a point there.
We did have one earlier, though.
Yes,
but
we did.
Please provide another.
I just figured this was fitting because I've heard a lot of conversation today about the NBA. And this is part of the reason why I don't necessarily get into the NBA. But here's my dad joke for you. Why did the basketball player sit on the sideline and sketch?
Why?
He was trying to draw a foul.
Thank you, Wes. Thank you for the call.
I do like that one. I do like that one, Wes. I do like that one. Considering all that's been happening, SGA.
Yes.
So it kind of fits in.
It's timely. It's
Exactly.
timely.
Very timely.
Chase from White Bluff says, are you doing the viral cheese pull at Chili's? First of all,
What is
I don't
that?
like the sound of viral cheese pull. I don't like the way that sounds.
What is it again?
Apparently, it's a TikTok thing
Mm-hmm.
for people to go to Chili's, order the fried mozzarella planks or sticks or whatever. And I guess there's you can really stretch the cheese out really far. I don't know.
That ain't real cheese, is it? You can stretch it out that far?
I did see it. I'm sure the two of you
Yes.
saw it as well during the NCAA tournament. There was this advertisement for a cheeseburger at Applebee's where it was a cheeseburger that arrives in a skillet full of queso.
It looked disgusting.
I'm like,
Oh, my goodness.
who asked for this? Like, who wants a cheeseburger to arrive in a skillet full of queso? I saw an advertisement recently. It's like, now with even more cheese. I'm like, who needs this? Who wants this? If
my
anyone's
goodness.
actually tried this burger, you can text us because I do want to know.
Or if you eat at Applebee's, because I don't know anyone that does that either.
I mean, don't hate on Applebee's.
I am.
I will tell you this. One time
Hating on the B.
I was traveling from here to St. Louis, and I stopped in Paducah, Kentucky. Shout out to all of our listeners in Paducah. And the wait at the Applebee's on the Friday night was like 45 minutes. So the people of Paducah love Applebee's. So shame on you.
Was it Kentucky game day?
No, it was not.
Oh, wow.
It was a random Friday night or Saturday night. I think it was a Saturday night because I was traveling to St. Louis because the Predators were playing the Blues. The Predators played here on Saturday, and I think they played the Blues on a Sunday. So I decided to drive, and I stopped in Paducah, and it was hopping in Paducah,
wow.
Kentucky. My only trip to Paducah, by the way.
Okay.
Shout out to Paducah. But the Applebee's in Paducah on a Friday night,
It's
you
slapping.
needed a reservation
Ooh.
to get in there. I thought I could walk in,
Hey.
but I was sorely mistaken.
See, that's what you get for thinking.
That's right. I really should stop doing that. I do want to ask a question for Derek.
Yes.
Our friend Easton Freeze of A to Z Sports shared this on X, and I would love to get your thoughts, Derek. For an entire season, would you rather have A, no injuries, or B, no turnovers?
Oh, wow. I think for me, it would be no injuries.
Interesting. You know what
yeah.
Robert Saleh's answer was today?
What was that?
No turnovers.
I mean, yeah, but then what if your quarterback gets hurt, or your starting receiver gets hurt, or your defensive tackle gets hurt? People go down, and turnovers happen. I get it. But I would, rather have because there are things you can do to minimize turnovers. there's nothing you could do to minimize a injury. You hope that by your conditioning and everything else,
banning seed oils.
Yeah, banning seed oils. You hoping you keep your fingers crossed that no one gets hurt. And the likelihood of someone get hurt, like hurt meaning, now, let's define this, okay? Are they hurt or are they injured?
All I know is no injuries, no turnovers.
Okay, injuries is different. Hurt, they come back. I hurt my hand, but I can still play. Injury mean I can't play. So I would rather have no injuries. I could try to minimize the turnovers as best as possible because there are things you can do. That's what it's all about. Trying to put together a scheme to score for one or stop the team from scoring, but to minimize the mistakes or minimize the times you hand over the ball to the opposing team. You want to keep the ball as much as you humanly possibly can and score each and every time. So there are things that I can do to minimize the turnovers. There's nothing I can do but keep my fingers crossed when it comes to injury.
Robert Saleh said, by the way, turnovers to me are the number one indicator of wins and losses in all of football through the history of time.
Did he have that? He must have did analytics on
that. I think it's pretty cut and dry.
Yeah, I think it is. But in this day and age, when you're talking about these uber athletes and you're paying them these, this large sum of money and how much they mean to the organization, you try to do whatever you can so they don't get hurt, but you can't. Once they get out on the field, there's nothing you can do but hope and pray that my left tackle don't fall and get my quarterback blindsided from the back, or my quarterback doesn't decide to run and leap into the air and injure himself. There's nothing I can do about that, but I can do some things about turning the ball over. That's just the way I look at it.
Scott in Waverly says the queso burger at Applebee's is fire. It's so good they made it a permanent item.
Wow.
Scott, you are the only person I know, and I only know you through the text line, who has tried the Applebee's cheeseburger delivered in a skillet of queso. Like, to me, like, look, I love an off the wall sandwich. I like trying new things. But to me, it's just like it's too much cheese. It's just too much cheese.
What do you do with the extra cheese?
I don't know. Maybe
just leave it there.
I don't know.
Box it up.
One texter says the way Vrabel plugged and played players 4 years ago, whatever it was, when the Titans had the most injuries and rotation of players in the NFL shows that turnovers win and lose games.
I mean, turnovers, I'm not saying... Again,
I had to really clean up that text, by the way.
I'm not saying that
grammatical errors
does not dictate wins or losses. Okay, I understand that. But look at the Titans defense. It was decimated. And I mean decimated. And they paid for it. They couldn't understand, and I get it, that turnovers, if you look at it, he who holds on to the ball the longest and the most tends to win more times than not. I get that part. But he who stays healthy, especially during the end of the season, those teams tend to do better. As the prime example, look at Denver. They lost their quarterback. The game before the AFC Championship game. And you know what hurt them? Not having their quarterback. They turned the ball over too, but I guarantee you, had they had a quarterback, maybe they could have overcome some of those turnovers. People don't talk about that either.
In other news today, Brendan Sorsby, according to ESPN, former Texas Tech quarterback, placed at least 40 bets involving Indiana football as a quarterback for the Hoosiers, used sportsbook accounts registered to a family member and friends to wager approximately $90,000 over 4 years.
Wow.
And continued to gamble after transferring from Cincinnati to Texas Tech in December.
Well, he said he had a problem, and that obviously looks like a man who had a problem. I just hope that his time out at the, center in Arizona helps him. But it's going to be hard for him to get on a team, man. It really is. I honestly would be surprised if somebody selected him in the supplemental draft. I would be.
It says here on ESPN, during his college career at Indiana and Cincinnati, Sorsby used accounts registered in his name, a family member's name, and friends' names to place at least $90,000 in impermissible wages via Hard Rock Bet, FanDuel, Underdog, and Prize Pick accounts. He transferred at least $60,000 to two friends to cover bets made on his behalf. While
Wow.
Sorsby was enrolled at Indiana, he acknowledged making at least 2,900 bets that totaled more than $30,000. He made at least 40 wagers on Indiana football and or individual members of the team. The bets ranged from $1 to $114 and totaled at least $850.
Did he make any money? Did he make any money? They talked about what he lost or what he wagered, but did he make any money?
I'm not sure.
Because if you're going to do all that, hopefully you at least made money. But I don't want to make light of his addiction because he has an addiction to gambling. So again, I hope after spending time there in Arizona that he's, much better than he, coming out than he was going in.
One texter says, would you rather go a whole season without any injuries or without any coaches taking boat trips in Putnam County?
Boat trips in Putnam
Yes.
County.
Let's leave the boat trips in the past.
Putnam.
Robert Saleh, don't do it.
Don't. Putnam.
Don't do that to your wife and 24 children.
Yeah.
That's a rough estimate. But he's got like 615-737-1025. We'll wrap up the show coming up next. I want to get into a clip that went viral about the NFL. And we'll wrap up the show discussing that coming up next. Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, 1025 The Game.
One thing that I feel like the NFL needs to hold on to that I feel like we're starting to drift away from.
What's that?
I don't think we're there yet. Sunday is the day of football, right? Outside of going to church in the morning, if you're still religious and you do that, Sunday is like where so many games happen. And that's what you grow up in. You gear your entire week around watching football on Sunday.
Yeah.
It's an institution at this point, the NFL playing games on Sunday. With every day that we keep adding in there, we're getting away from that just a little bit. And I worry that I think the game got big. One of the reasons it got so popular and big was because all of the game, it was an event. Sunday is the NFL. And everybody set their week apart to tune into their games that were happening on Sunday. And you're watching kind of all of them now take place across Sunday Ticket, right? I worry that we're getting away from that just a little bit by building too many of this.
That was Jason Kelsey on the New Heights podcast, worrying about the future of Sunday football. Derek Mason, Adam Vingan here with you, wrapping up the week. Derek, with all of the games now on Monday, there are some Wednesday games, Thursday games, of course, even some Friday games. Are we diminishing the importance of Sunday football and how much of a cultural touchstone that is for America?
Yes and no. Yes, they are, in the sense of, no longer is, it's a 14 game season or a 16 game season. And this isn't 20 years ago where, football was just Sunday. Everybody looked forward to it. We're not there. We hadn't been there in a very long time. What did they say in the movie? I forget. If they build it, we'll come. With the baseball
Field of
movie.
Dreams.
Yeah, Field of Dreams. They built it, which is football, and the people are coming, and the people have shown they're not going to stop coming. And I think this is sometimes, players. Well, a lot of players do. Once they're out of the league, they become a little bit more retrospective and see things from a different scope or lens. He's looking at it from a guy that is retired now and that long for the older days. And when I mean older days, I mean when we didn't have football basically every day, where it was just Sunday, Monday, and maybe Thursday. And then it got to Sunday, Monday, and Thursday, and that was it. Well, the players asked for more money, right? The league said, we need more money for the players and for ourselves. So what did they do? Hey, ABC, NBC, ESPN, Peacock, all of y'all, who wants dibs on the NFL? But it's going to cost you this much because the players want more money and we want more money. And the fans are telling us they love the product. So when that happens, you just can't have games on Mondays and Thursdays or Sundays anymore. You have to have games on Friday, Saturday, Monday, Tuesday. Hell, they want the whole day of the week. So in order to give the fans, for one, and these big companies that are, pouring goo gobs of money into the NFL, you have to go on days that are not traditional anymore. Or you got to go away from the traditional Sunday afternoon and Sunday night game. You just have to. So if this is what the players wanted, more money. So what comes with more money is more responsibility to be on a television screen.
Albert Breer of Sports Illustrated breaks it down. He goes, in the afternoon windows, there are 13 total games in only 2 of the 18 weeks of the season. There are 12 games in the 2 windows on 4 occasions, 11 on 6 occasions, 10 on 4 Sundays, and then 9 in week 12 and 8 in week 17 on the 2 holiday weekends. By comparison, in 2006, 11 games were the low watermark, and it was only that low twice. Fans got 12 afternoon games on 9 of the 17 Sundays, with 2 weeks of 13 and 4 of 14. And we didn't play this part of the clip, but after Jason Kelsey said that, his brother Travis said, well, when you look at it a little bit deeper, how many games are there on Wednesdays? There's only 2 Wednesday games this season. The season opener, the Super Bowl rematch, and the Thanksgiving Eve, quote unquote, game. And then I think there are some Black Friday games as well. So although there are games on non-traditional days, there really aren't that many of them. But I understand Jason Kelsey's point that gathering around the TV, if you're religious, you come home from church, you plop down on Sunday afternoon, and you're watching football from early afternoon until the end of the day.
But you still can do that. You still can, come home from church, depending on what service you go to. I know Sundays people tend to go to the earlier service, which is an 8 o'clock service. You still can be home when the game started at noon, and you're watching football from noon, sometimes until 9 o'clock, depending on what region of the U.S. you're in. You're watching football for a long period of time. You may have to go to different, networks or platforms to see it, but there's just not as many games, and they're spreading them out, which is, again, I get it, but yes, it's happening, but I don't think it's to a point where the league is going to, go back and think about us restructuring some things and adding back more Sunday games. If they go back in to restructure anything, it's to figure out how can we have a game every day of the week throughout the season.
I don't want that.
I don't want it either. The NFL does.
Look, I love football. I am not a football sicko. Like, I'm not going to watch every game that's on TV. The Red Zone channel gives me a sugar rush I can't handle because of how quickly things move. Sometimes I like to just sit down and watch one game. I'm that guy. I know you're a big fan of the multi-view, Derek Mason. I have a hard time with the multi-view. I'm traditional. I like to put one game on the screen. I like to focus on one game. And if I need to flip, I'll actually flip between channels. I don't need football every day of the week. Monday, Thursday, Sunday, the occasional Wednesday or Friday on a holiday, that's fine. I can live without there being NFL football every day of the week. Jeff says, DMase, give us an honest assessment of Adam and the rest of the Nashville media's inability to call what Barry Trotz has done for the Predators a competitive rebuild, even if it has been unsuccessful. Stop. Stop. All right, let me read that again, and you guys point out to me where the problem lies. DMase, give us an honest assessment of Adam and the rest of the Nashville media's inability to call what Barry Trotz has done has been a competitive rebuild, even if it has been unsuccessful.
I guess
you can't put competitive and unsuccessful
together.
6 words apart.
Yes.
Or competitive and rebuild.
I know that's
the whole competitive rebuild.
Yes.
that has been the moniker. Not just, I don't think with Nashville with the Predators, but other teams
try to pull it off.
Exactly.
It's an oxymoron.
Yeah.
I think. I mean, perhaps not. I would say the Montreal Canadiens, for example, are in the midst of a competitive rebuild. They are in the Eastern Conference Final. They could be eliminated tonight. Puck drop in Raleigh at 7 p.m. tonight, Game 5 of the Eastern Conference Final. We'll see if the Hurricanes can advance to the Stanley Cup Final for the first time, I want to say, in 20-ish years, thereabouts, because they won the Stanley Cup in 2006, right? So it's been 20 years since the Hurricanes made it to the Stanley Cup Final. The Vegas Golden Knights awaiting the winner of that series. But yes, Jeff, you can't put... Well, you need to give them credit for the competitive rebuild that's been unsuccessful. You can't do that. Come on. Reading comprehension, my friend.
I get it.
We appreciate you. Game 7 of the Western Conference Final in the NBA tomorrow, a 7 p.m. Central tip-off between the Spurs and the Thunder. Do the Spurs or Thunder get the job done, Derek Mason?
Wow. Shea had a bad game last game.
Minus 28.
Minus 28. I don't expect that to happen again.
The Thunder, by the way, are favored by 3.5.
I don't expect that to happen again. I expect him to, if they are going to win, he's going to be the reason why. OKC has been dealing with injuries. If OKC can find a way to, because those other guys shot well, and we talked about this yesterday. When they're going to try to do whatever they can to take Wemby out the game. It's those other guys on the outside. And what did they do the first quarter of the game? They were hitting 3-pointers from everywhere, even Wemby. So when they were doubling Wemby passed it and they were hitting. That set the tone for the whole game. If that doesn't happen, Game 7 in OKC, they have no shot at winning. None whatsoever. I think this is going to be a highly contested game. I want San Antonio to win. I just think they're still a little bit too young. I think OKC pulls it out, and you're going to have the Knicks and OKC fight for the championship.
By the way, it was reported that Jalen Williams, Jalen Williams, has been ruled out for Game 7.
He's still dealing with hamstring
for the Thunder against the Spurs.
He tried. Did
tomorrow.
he play yesterday? The other day?
I think so.
He tried to play with the hamstring. Yeah, and that's. I don't even know. See, hamstrings are so tricky. I don't know why they threw them out there. If you are not 100% with hamstrings, you cannot go out there. And look at what has happened. He can't even play for Game 7. I would have rather have him for Game 7 than Game 6, because Game 6 wasn't an elimination game. It wasn't. At least not for them. That may have been a bonehead mistake for them.
Dustin says Titans fans only watch about 20 minutes of football anyway. After the middle of the second quarter, we all know the drill.
Stop.
I mean,
the Titans alone.
Look, I said this at the end of the regular season. I turned on the game in Jacksonville, Week 18. Cam Ward gets hurt. As soon as it said on the broadcast, Cam Ward ruled out, shoulder. Here comes Brandon Allen. Click. I was not sticking around for a Week 18 game with Brandon Allen at quarterback. But who knows? Maybe the Tennessee Titans will give their fans reason to stick around through halftime this year, or midway through the third quarter this year instead of midway through the second quarter. Speaking of the Eastern Conference Final, I think Carolina finishes it off tonight. The Hurricanes have been dominating the Canadiens over the past few games. After that one loss to start the series, I think Carolina finishes it off at home, and we get a Vegas versus Carolina final, which I think would be absolutely fascinating. If that happens, I'm looking to see when the Stanley Cup final will start. If the Hurricanes finish off Montreal tonight, Game 1 of the Stanley Cup final will be Tuesday in Carolina. Tuesday in Carolina, if Carolina defeats Vegas, if Carolina defeats Montreal tonight. If it goes to 6 or 7 games, the Stanley Cup final will start on Thursday, June 4th. But that will do it for us today and this week. We had a great time. We hope you did as well. We are manifesting a Denison Big Red win for our friend Willie Donick.
Yes.
He wasn't on the show today because his son Mahoney was playing in the D3 College World Series. The Big Red lost 5-1, snapping a 44-game winning streak, tied for the longest in D3 baseball history. But it is a double elimination tournament. So the Big Red are still in it, but they've got to win tomorrow morning. We'll see if the Big Red are still playing when we're back on the air Monday at 3 o'clock. Have a wonderful weekend. Be safe, and we will talk to you Monday at 3.
Be loved, love on your people. Have a blessed and wonderful day. I love you. The team loves you. You hear that music? Don't you forget about us, because we will not forget about you. We will see you back. You will hear us back on these airways starting at 3 p.m. on Monday. Will be back. And in the greatest words ever from the greatest musician / singer / dancer ever, when the world is on your shoulders, got to straighten up your act and boogie down. I love you. The team loves you. You hear that music? Don't forget about us, because we won't forget about you. See you later. As always, we're going to be talking and
you're going to be listening.
Peace. Love ya.